I destroyed his RuneScape world after he cheated on me. I met him in RuneScape when I was 17. He was 14. I still remember the exact moment we started talking. It was inside a crowded bank area in the game, where people were spamming trades and chatting nonsense. Somehow, in the middle of all that chaos, we noticed each other. It started with something small, a shared joke, a quick exchange. Then suddenly we were doing quests together, logging in at the same times, talking more, relying on each other. Before long, it was daily. That kind of connection felt unreal back then. It was effortless. We became inseparable. Not just in the game, but in conversation too. We started chatting outside the game, using messaging apps, staying up until 2 or 3 in the morning. He would message me right when he woke up. I would send him screenshots from my day. We were just kids, but there was something real in it. It felt safe. He made me laugh more than anyone else ever had. There was a softness to him, a goofy kind of charm that drew me in. Even with the age gap and the distance between us, we felt close. Eventually, we crossed that line between friends and something more. One of us said it first. I can't remember who, but from that point on, it was a relationship. Long distance, yes, but real to both of us. Every few months, we would find a way to meet in person. Flights were expensive and schedules were complicated, but we made it work. Each visit felt like this magical pocket of time. We would talk about what it would be like to live in the same place permanently. The plan was always that I would move to him once I had enough stability with my job. Back then, I thought we were building something. Not just in RuneScape, where we created a shared account and trained skills together like it was our digital child, but in real life too. He would send me songs. I would send him care packages. We made promises, talked about the future, told each other that the distance was temporary, that one day we would fall asleep in the same bed and wake up without needing a phone call. But somewhere along the way, I started to grow. I got busier with work. I started taking on more responsibilities. My career began to matter more. My time was valuable in a new way. I didn't have the energy to spend hours in a video game every night, and I didn't need to. Life was happening outside the screen. He stayed exactly the same. He played RuneScape constantly, not just casually, but obsessively. It became his entire life. While I was working 8-hour shifts and juggling bills, he was grinding skills and hoarding gold in a virtual world. I told myself it was just a phase, that maybe he was trying to cope with something. But months passed, and nothing changed. He couldn't hold a job. Every opportunity slipped through his fingers. I started covering his rent when he moved out of his parents' place. I sent him money for food. I bought him in-game items, paid for his membership, even gifted him other games just to keep him happy. He always promised things would get better, but I was the only one putting in real-world effort, and still I stayed. I told myself love required sacrifice, that not everyone moved at the same pace, that he just needed more time. I thought maybe one day he would catch up. I was wrong. It all started to feel heavier around last November. My own expenses were piling up. I had car repairs that couldn't wait, bills that were already overdue, and some debts to the state that I was still trying to clear. For the first time in years, I had to tell him something I never imagined I would say. I couldn't afford to cover his rent. I expected him to be upset. I even rehearsed what I was going to say before calling him. But I didn't expect what actually happened. He panicked, like full meltdown mode. He started crying on the phone and saying he couldn't go back to his parents, that they would abuse him, that he'd have nowhere to go. I sat there on the line, listening to him fall apart, trying to comfort him while my own stress was eating me alive. I reminded him that his parents weren't what he claimed. I had seen them interact with him plenty of times. They weren't monsters. They were patient, generous, and honestly, they had done more for him than he gave them credit for. I even offered to help him look for something temporary, just until I could catch up financially. I thought if I gave him options, he would take one, but he shot everything down. The conversation spiraled. He became passive-aggressive, accused me of letting him down. When I tried to explain my side, he barely listened. We ended the call on a tense, bitter note. Afterward, I sat on my bed and just stared at the wall. My heart was pounding in my chest. I felt guilty and exhausted at the same time, like I was the one failing him, even though I was the only one actually trying. Still, I didn't stop. Cared about him. So the next day, I reached out to his dad. I didn't want to embarrass him or start a fight. I just explained the situation honestly. I told him that his son might need to move back in for a little while and asked if he knew of any job openings nearby. Surprisingly, his dad was incredibly helpful. He mentioned that a friend needed seasonal help at a small warehouse. The job was simple: moving boxes, sweeping, keeping inventory, $15 an hour, flexible hours. It was practically made for someone like him. That night, I brought it up. I explained everything gently, even tried to sound excited about it. But before I could finish, he cut me off, said the job sounded beneath him, said he didn't want to work in some crappy warehouse just to earn a little money. He didn't want to work at all. He just wanted to stay home and play RuneScape. I was stunned. I reminded him about the other job listings I had sent, but he had already dismissed those. Then he said something that made my stomach twist. He told me maybe I should be working harder, maybe I should get a second job, so that he didn't have to work at all. I didn't even know how to respond. I just sat there with the phone in my hand, completely frozen. I wanted to scream at him. Instead, I calmly explained why that wasn't going to happen. I told him what my daily schedule looked like. I told him how many hours I was already working, how mentally draining my job was. I'm an industrial meteorologist. My work is demanding, high stakes, and far from easy. He just shrugged it off. When the call ended, I broke down. I cried harder than I had in years. Not because of money, not because of work, but because I realized in that moment that he didn't see me as a partner. He saw me as a lifeline, something to use and lean on, not someone to build a future with. And still, even after all that, I stayed. Some part of me, the part that still remembered the early days and the inside jokes, wanted to believe he could change, that maybe he had just been in a dark place, that the stress of adulthood had gotten to him and this was just a rough patch. So I gave him another chance. I reached out again. We talked things through. He apologized, or at least gave something close enough to an apology that I accepted it. I wanted to believe him so badly. Eventually, he moved back in with his parents. And this time, he actually started working. It was just a part-time retail job, but he was making money. He had a schedule. He had something to do that didn't involve sitting in front of a screen all day. I tried to be supportive. I encouraged him. I praised every little bit of effort. And slowly, I felt myself relaxing. For the first time in a while, it felt like maybe he was finally starting to grow up. I went back to being the supportive girlfriend. I bought him things. I sent him money occasionally, just like before, even though he had an income now. I wanted to reward the progress. That's what it felt like. Progress. He even started saving up for a trip to see me. After months of being apart, we finally made it happen. We pooled our money and booked a flight. He was going to stay with me for 4 days. I was nervous but hopeful. I cleaned my apartment, planned a few simple dates, picked out some restaurants I thought he'd enjoy. I wanted this visit to be the start of something better. When he arrived, it was nice. Really nice. He looked healthier. He talked about his job and the weird customers he had to deal with. We laughed about silly things like we used to. He took me out to eat for the first time ever with his own money. That felt huge. Like maybe this was the person I had been waiting for. For 2.5 days, I let myself believe it. I let myself forget the nights I cried alone. I let myself ignore the bitterness I had buried deep down. I let myself hope. Then everything shattered. It was late at night. He was taking a shower and I was curled up in bed scrolling through my phone. His phone was charging on the nightstand. I didn't mean to look. I really didn't. But the screen lit up with a Discord notification, and I couldn't help but glance over. It said, "When are you gonna leave her?" I froze. My body went numb. My heart sank into my stomach. That one sentence told me everything. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't innocent. I didn't even know who she was, but I knew what it meant. I stared at his phone for what felt like an hour, trying to breathe, trying not to panic. I could hear the shower running, and every second felt like a countdown. I didn't storm into the bathroom. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I smiled, a fake, bitter smile, and waited. When he came out, I was calm, too calm. He asked me if I was okay. I said yes. We talked. We watched a little TV. He didn't notice the difference, but something inside me had snapped. I hated him, fully and completely, but I wasn't going to show it yet. That night, he tried to initiate sex. I politely said no. I could barely stand the sight of him. He looked disappointed but didn't push. He rolled over and fell asleep, and while he slept peacefully beside me, I made a decision. As soon as I was sure he was asleep, I reached across the bed, unplugged his phone, and started scrolling. My hands were shaking. My heart was pounding. So loud, I was scared it would wake him. But I had to know the truth. I had to see it for myself. The Discord message wasn't a fluke. It was just the surface. I opened his chat with the girl and started reading. Message after message, stacked in endless threads. They had been talking for months. Not just friendly conversation, but full-on cheating, flirting, sexting, trash-talking. Me behind my back. It felt like being stabbed over and over again, one sentence at a time. He had started this thing with her around the same time I told him I couldn't pay his rent. That realization hit me the hardest. The second I stopped being useful to him, he moved on. Not only that, but he twisted the story. In their messages, he claimed I was emotionally abusive. He told her I was manipulative, that I was lazy and selfish. The same things he used to say about his parents, he now said about me. And then I found something even worse. He had sent her my nudes, private pictures I had trusted him with. He sent them so they could mock me together, picking apart my body, making fun of how I looked, laughing at things I had once shared in confidence. I put the phone down for a second, just to stop myself from screaming. I felt physically ill, like I wanted to throw up or break something, but I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't wake him up or demand answers. I kept reading. I read hundreds of messages, probably over 100,000 in total. Every paragraph made me hate him more. Every comment pushed me further from the person I used to be, and closer to someone I never thought I could become. Someone cold, someone vengeful, someone who was done being quiet. By the time I finally put his phone down, it was nearly morning. I had barely slept, but I didn't let it show. When he woke up, I acted like nothing had changed. I smiled. I offered him coffee. I made breakfast. He sat at my desk, eating my food and playing RuneScape on my computer like he had not just shattered everything we had built. It was surreal. He looked like a stranger in my home. I drove him to the airport and gave him a fake hug goodbye. He kissed me on the cheek and told me he'd miss me. I smiled and waved. As soon as I got back home, I closed the door and collapsed on the floor. I sobbed. Angry, broken sobs. The kind that scrape your throat raw. I screamed into a pillow. I kicked my bed so hard the frame cracked. The pain was unbearable, but I wasn't going to let it end there. I wanted him to feel something too. Something real. Something that would leave a scar. So I sat down at my computer, wiped my tears, and opened RuneScape. We had a shared account. Not just any account, but one we treated like a little project. A digital child. Something we built together from scratch. We both trained it, logged into it, celebrated level-ups together. For years, it was one of the few things that actually felt collaborative between us. We even used to joke about how if we ever broke up, he'd take half the bank and I'd take the other half. That joke stuck with me, so I logged into that account and took what I considered my half. Then I took his half too. I transferred my share over to my main account, just like we always joked about. But his share? I gave it away. Every single coin. I found random players all over the game and handed out gold like I was hosting a charity drive. For items that couldn't be traded directly, I used in-game spells to convert them to coins and then gave those away too. When I was done, the bank was empty, but I wasn't done. I remembered that I still had the credentials to his main account, the one he had been building for more than a decade. He had asked me to train his farming skill a few times in the past and had written the login info down for me on a piece of paper. I found it in my desk drawer, still intact, still working. I logged in. His RuneScape world opened up in front of me. That account was his baby. 14 years of grinding, collecting, and perfecting. It was immaculate, wealthy, fully geared, the kind of account that would make other players stop and admire. And in that moment, I became the Grim Reaper of his digital life. I started with the bank. I sold everything. I mean everything. Armor, weapons, rare pets, cosmetics, supplies. If it had value, I dumped it into the Grand Exchange and turned it into coins. It took hours. I was meticulous. He was still in the air, probably thinking about what he'd have for dinner, while I was wiping out his legacy piece by piece. By the end, I had over 8.5 billion gold. Then came the fun part. I contacted an old friend in the game. A guy who had always collected something absurd. Burnt food. In RuneScape, burnt food has no use. You can't eat it, sell it, or really do anything with it. But it's tradable. He had thousands of burnt food items stored away. When I asked him for the most ridiculous item he owned, he offered me 6,000 burnt spider-on-shaft items. Perfect. I gave him over 2 billion gold for them and left satisfied. Then I dropped every single burnt spider into my ex's bank. That's all that remained where once stood gear worth literal billions. Useless dead spiders. A graveyard of disappointment. And I still had gold to burn. I had over 6 billion gold left after the spider drop, and I wasn't about to let a single coin go to waste. So I decided to treat myself. After all, I was the one who had been supporting him, emotionally and financially, for years. If anyone deserved a reward, it was me. The first thing I did was buy bonds. In RuneScape, bonds are items you can trade or redeem for in-game membership. Each bond gives you 2 weeks of membership, and I didn't hold back. I bought 100 of them and sent them to my own account. That's nearly 4 years of paid membership, just sitting there, completely funded by his own hoarded wealth. Then I splurged. I went on the Grand Exchange and spent like a queen. I bought top-tier gear for my own account. Weapons I had only dreamed of using. Rare armor sets that would make any player jealous. I filled my bank with everything I had once considered a luxury. I even bought massive stacks of expensive skilling supplies, just to power level something I had always put off because of the cost. I could picture him opening his account later, confused about the missing items, wondering if his account had been hacked, slowly realizing that the only person who ever had his login info was me. I smiled every time I imagined his face. The panic, the heartbreak, the realization that I was done being used. Once the shopping spree ended, I looked at his, bank again. There was still a little money left. About 150,000 gold. Practically nothing in RuneScape terms. I walked over to the Grand Exchange area and found a player cooking pizzas. I traded the gold to him. Just like that, every last coin was gone. But I wasn't finished. I picked up a random pile of bones someone had dropped on the ground and left it in his bank. That was it. That was the final item. One single bone. No context, no explanation, just emptiness and insult. Then I remembered something else. His account was what players call a pure. That means he never trained his defense skill. It's a strategy used to keep a character's combat level low while maximizing offensive abilities. It takes discipline and planning. It's not something you mess up by accident, so I leveled his defense to 6, one tiny little mistake that would ruin years of calculated play. That single move destroyed the integrity of his build forever. His account was no longer what it had been. It wasn't elite, it wasn't special, it was ruined. Beyond repair unless he started all over, and I still wasn't done. After all the damage I had already done, I could have stopped. I could have logged off and let that be the end of it. But when someone uses you, lies to you, shares your most private photos, and acts like none of it matters, you don't just stop at damage. You go for destruction. He had spent billions of gold and years of time building his in-game house. I had seen it many times when we used to play together. It was actually impressive. Fully furnished, filled with rare decorations, built room by room with expensive upgrades. It was something he had taken great pride in. One of the few things in his life he had actually committed to. So I deleted it. Every single room, every item, every servant and layout and upgrade. Gone in minutes. Years of effort, wiped out. RuneScape doesn't offer any sort of house insurance. Once it's deleted, that's it. There's no backup, no undo button. Just a patch of dirt where something beautiful used to be, and that dirt was exactly what he deserved. Then I opened his friends list. I scanned through the names, dozens of them. Some people I remembered, most I didn't. A few of them were online. I picked a handful who were still active and messaged them as if I were him. I told them he had cheated on his girlfriend and was proud of it. I didn't even care if they believed it. I just wanted the idea planted, the stain on his reputation, the hint of drama. For the rest of his list, I did the simplest thing of all. I removed them. Every friend, every contact, gone. His social circle in the game, gone. His support system, gone. He would log in and see a list of empty slots. No one to message, no one to ask for help. I paused for a moment after that. It had all happened so fast, but every click felt satisfying. It wasn't just about the game anymore. It was about taking back control, about sending a message that I wasn't the weak, quiet girl he could lie to and walk all over. Then I remembered one last thing I could do. RuneScape lets you change your username once a month. It's a small detail, but to some players, your name is everything. His was recognizable. It had weight. A little bit of clout. He had used it for years and refused to ever change it. So I changed it for him. I picked a new name that would humiliate him. I won't say what it was, but I used all 12 characters wisely. It was something cruel, something obvious, and something no one would ever forget. If he didn't act fast, his old username would be up for grabs, and you can guess what I plan to do if it becomes available. By the time I logged out, there was nothing left. The bank was empty. His account was corrupted. His house was destroyed. His social circle was gone. His name was a joke. And all of it had been done calmly, methodically, and while he was completely unaware. That night, after everything was done, he sent me a message. It came hours after his flight landed. I could tell from the timestamp that he had finally logged in and realized what had happened. His words were frantic, angry, spiteful. He accused me of betrayal, of violating his trust, of ruining something he had worked his whole life for. Then he sent pictures of himself crying, real tears, puffy eyes, messy hair, like I was supposed to feel bad for him, like he hadn't cheated on me, lied to me, taken advantage of my generosity for years, as if sharing my nudes with some girl on Discord was somehow less cruel than what I had done. In return, I didn't reply right away. I took my time. Then I wrote the coldest, most calculated message I have ever sent in my life. I told him we were over, permanently, that I had seen everything, that I knew about the messages, the photos, the lies, and that I wasn't going to just sit and let it all slide. I also told him that if he ever contacted me again, I would consider taking legal action. I threatened him with a cease and desist, told him I had documented everything, that if I wanted to, I could report him for distributing private images without consent, and that he should think very carefully before trying to message me again. Truthfully, I don't plan to go to court. I don't want more drama. I don't want revenge in real life. I just wanted to scare him enough that he would never reach out again. And it worked. He hasn't said a word since. It's strange. The mix of emotions I feel now. There's still pain. There's still sadness, but it's cleaner than before. It's not tangled in confusion or guilt. It's sharp and quiet. And in that stillness, I've found peace. He took years of my life. I gave him money, love, loyalty, and patience. He repaid me with betrayal. So I took the only thing he truly valued and turned it into dust. Not because I'm evil, but because I'm done letting people treat me like I'm disposable.
The case has been heard. The stories have been told. Now it's your turn to judge. Leave your verdict in the comments. Like, share, and subscribe. The Court of Stories is always in session.